Do you buy some of the rumors in the market that perhaps this is sparked by one key big seller, that is SpaceX? There were the reports coming from the Wall Street Journal, or is this just thin markets?
I think it's just market structure. I think the SpaceX selling probably already happened. What we saw in the last few months was Bitcoin and Ethereum trading at all-time low volatility. Meanwhile, market makers were pulling out of the ecosystem. So we had a very illiquid market, and open interest on futures was ramping up significantly. So the move was expected. I think we saw there had to be a flush out. We didn't know if it was going to be to the upside or to the downside. But as the dollar has been getting strong recently, a little bit of a sell-off in crypto meant that longs were liquidated, and we saw a sharp, quick move to the downside.
I mean, everyone's now eyeing the $25,000 level as some sort of technical line in the sand. But is there any catalyst to the upside? Because many had started to desire to get into Bitcoin because there were hopes of some sort of spot Bitcoin ETF, for example.
I think there are a lot of catalysts to the upside. I think you have the spot BTC ETF, which Mike Novogratz on the Galaxy call basically says a matter of when, not if. You have the halving next year, which typically there's a bull run after the halving, but it could be something where we see a rally into it. We have the SEC case against Coinbase looking shaky after Judge Torres basically said that tokens traded on secondary exchanges aren't investment contracts. And lastly, you have the Fed tightening cycle. It's topping out. So I think there's a lot of catalysts that basically are laying the narrative for what the future crypto bull run could look like.
I'm interested that you talk, of course, about the Bitcoin spot ETF and what Mike said about it on the call for Galaxy. What about this talk around an ETH ETF, or at least an ETH futures one? How much would that galvanize interest in some of the alternative coins?
I think it's huge. I think that news happening within minutes or hours of this liquidation is really interesting. But I think the main thing for me with the ETH futures ETF, it basically means that Ethereum won't be a security. I think that ship has sailed, and it's going to allow people to get a lot more exposure to ETH than they would have, the same way the people get exposure to Bitcoin through the futures ETF. So I think it's huge. I don't know how deep down sort of the coin market cap we can go as far as what's going to be considered a security or not. But I think for sure Ethereum, that ship has sailed, and Ethereum will be considered a commodity regulated by the CFTC moving forward.
Just go back to what you said at the start of that answer and the fact that these timings happened almost hours apart from each other. What do you mean by that? Was there any way that you think that was catalyzing a sell-off in Bitcoin?
I don't think there was any specific timing or reason. I'm not really sure. I don't want to be conspiratorial. Again, I think the cause for the liquidation was more market structure than anything. I think it might have been an interesting coincidence to see that ETH futures ETF was approved within hours of that liquidation event yesterday.
Can you just talk a little bit about who the marginal buyer is at the moment, or indeed where we're seeing people getting interested? If you do say there's catalyst to the upside of Bitcoin, and indeed some of the other alternative coins, who is buying into this market, regionally speaking, institutionally speaking?
We're seeing long-term holders really taking over right now, and short-term holders are the ones that are getting sort of fleeced out at the moment. I think the marginal buyer, one big catalyst for me is going to be Coinbase and their base chain. I think what they're doing really is disrupting themselves with that, and they're going to do a lot to bring retail and their assets on chain. So I think what we saw in sort of the demise of the last crypto bull run was these blow-ups of centralized entities. And I think Coinbase is really laying the groundwork for retail to put their assets in decentralized entities in DeFi, NFTs, decentralized apps. And I think that's going to be a huge narrative shift and a big rotation in where the marginal buyer comes and where they park their assets.